Alright, hello YouTube. This is videos at the request of some of the users. I apologize about the how crude this video is going to be, and understand my exhaust is in disrepair because it is quite old. The exhaust was one of the first things I replaced on this vehicle when I bought it over 6 years ago, so you'll see a lot of wear and tear. And actually throwing it up on the ramps, I took notice that I am going to have to replace the entire catback exhaust because the elbow joint on this actually rusted out while we were doing this. But what we'll do is start off things that you're going to want to do prior to any exhaust work is once you got your new exhaust in, make sure you lay it out on the ground, make sure all your parts fit together appropriately, and then go through and don't put everything like tightened together, but you want to put all the parts together, laid out, and make sure that they all fit appropriately. That way, if you have to buy any adapters at the local parts store, you can get the appropriate adapter before you're up underneath and then realizing that you got to run to the parts store. So you want to have all of your parts on hand. Now what you'll notice is I have the catback exhaust for here, and if I'll zoom in to the mid pipe right up there, and what you're looking at right there is a band clamp that holds the mid pipe onto the catback exhaust, which is all on here, and as you can see, a lot of it's starting to rust out. Now, when you first get your vehicle up on the ramps, you have your park brake set and everything's safe and ready to start working on it. Be prepared because with this model, since it is a 2010, it is 6 years old, so a lot of the parts may be rusted together. So what will happen is you'll most likely have to cut a lot of the exhaust pieces apart, which if it's rusted out, it doesn't really matter because you are going to probably dispose of it anyway, and you have the new parts right there. So make sure that you have either a reciprocating saw or some type of metal saw capable to cut some of these portions away. Now, when you cut the portions away, make sure you leave a lip of about 4 inches. Well, we'll say 2 to 4 inches, so that you can buy an adapter sleeve to fit over top of any portion that you have to cut away. So in this case, if we look on the back and we say, if you look, some of those nuts on the band clamp are actually fairly well rusted. You may not be able to break those free, so you might actually have to end up cutting the bolt and the band clamp off itself and have replacements ready for those as well. You also have to understand that this model has 6 exhaust hangers, and an exhaust hanger is a little metal, or not metal, but a little rubber figure 8 type object. And you can see that's an exhaust hanger right there attached to the exhaust, and then as I move down towards the back, you'll see an exhaust hanger there and an exhaust hanger there. My suggestion is just to buy 6 new exhaust hangers. That way you have them ready, because these are really hard, as you can see with the dimpled end here and then the hooked end here. They're very hard to get off of the exhaust. So the easy way to do it is just take a razor blade right to this edge right here and just keep on cutting at it until it cuts all the way through and then pops off. And you'll do that with all 6 of your exhaust pieces. But prior to cutting off your exhaust hangers, you'll want to loosen up your band clamps and get them off if possible. If not, you'll have to cut through them. So just cut them off to get them separated. Move the tubes into sections, and as you can see, all of my tubes I actually have welded, and I don't have the clamps on except for where they go into the mid pipe itself, because I had intended on replacing those mid pipes. So those are still clamped, but all the rest of my exhaust I had welded together. So what you'll do cut off the band clamp if need be. If you can take it off with the tools, take it off with the tools. Get the band clamps loose. Once you have the band clamps loose and off, you'll go ahead and cut off each one of your exhaust hangers on either side and on both sides, and then try to pull the exhaust itself off. If the exhaust does not come off, then you're going to have to use your reciprocating saw or metal saw or whatever you have available to cut as close to the edge of the adjoining pipe as possible. Again, you want to save as much room as possible, but you cut that off and then pull the whole exhaust out. Take the new pipe that you're going to place on, go to the auto parts store, get yourself the adapter that you can put on and slide that over top of the pipe and make sure it fits. Anybody at the auto parts store would be able to help you out. I believe these are a 3-inch exhaust, but I may be incorrect on the actual diameter. If anybody wants to comment for what the correct diameter on these is, you're more than welcome to. But you'll most likely need an adapter for like a 3-inch into, or a 3-inch into a 3-inch. So that way it'll fit nicely into that, and then you'll have to bolt on the adapter. For anybody who doesn't understand what I'm talking about with an adapter, I have one of my project cars over here. Now understand, this one isn't on a Challenger, but I did have to replace the exhaust. This is actually on a Grand Cherokee, and I had to cut off the exhaust right at the catalytic converter. So you can see where I had to cut at the catalytic converter. Now you'll see with these clamps, these aren't band clamps, these are U-bolt clamps. And these are a little bit more of a pain to get off than the band clamps are, because as you can see, if I get in here close, when you do the U-bolt clamps, it actually bends in to the metal itself, which causes the metal pipe to clamp down. So with these, it's almost physically impossible just to undo the clamp and remove it. You actually have to cut this off. And you can see with this little section right here that I'm showing you, that's the adapter. Now this is a 2.5 inch, and this was a 2.5 inch, so I had to get an adapter either which way because this piece would not fit directly into the catalytic converter. So I had to buy that piece, slide that on, clamp it down, slide the muffler on, clamp that down, and then go in, slide the tailpipe on, and clamp that down. It's much the same way that you're going to do to your Challenger. You're going to start from the front and work your way back with your parts. Make sure you slide your band clamps onto the pipe that you're installing, because once you put it on, then you're going to go, oh darn, I forgot to put that band clamp on, and you're going to have to pull it back off. So slide your band clamps onto the locations of the pipes that they're going to go. Just get up underneath your vehicle and go ahead and start sliding your pieces on. Now, when you put your pieces on, you don't want to torque or tighten them down. You just want to put them on, get them aligned, get them hung and inside. So assemble your pipe, and as you get to the exhaust hangers themselves, you might have to spray a little bit of WD-40. What I like to do is I like to put the exhaust hanger on the hook, spray the edge of the dimple with some WD-40. That way, while the exhaust hanger is on the hook, I just take the exhaust hanger and I push it up and push it on to the hook itself, and then just wipe off the excess WD-40 from that. And that's how you get those on. So as you get them mounted, put them on. Remember, don't tighten down your band clamps, and I'll explain to you why in a little bit. But mount it, hook it, put your next pipe on. Make sure that you have the clearance. I'm going to go ahead, mount it, and then pop your exhaust hangers on so that it holds steadily and right. And that's the way you get it. Once you get it all mounted, and the reason you don't want to torque it down is because if you look right inside this area here, you're going to have some areas where there may be a little bit of rubbing. So you're going to want to be able to twist and realign your exhaust so that you have appropriate clearance on the exhaust itself. Once you have the appropriate clearance on the exhaust itself, you should be good to go for what you're working with. But you want to make sure that the clearance on these sections where you could have rubbing, you have probably about a half an inch to an inch of clearance for where they are. That way the vibrations aren't rubbing against that metal, and that metal on metal isn't going to start cutting into your pipe itself. So you'll use that, realign it. Once you have it aligned and hung to where you want it to go, you go ahead, tighten down your band clamps, get everything good and snug. You want to get it as tight as possible without snapping the actual bolt or nut itself. Now when tightening the band clamps, you'll take notice with band clamps, there's only one bolt as opposed to two with the U-bolts. So you only have to tighten one side. If you're using U-bolts, you'll have to tighten one side and then tighten the other. And you want to keep equal turns between the two bolts when you're doing U-bolts. So yeah, do like 4 turns on one side, 4 turns on the other, 4 turns on one side, 4 turns on the other, and just alternate back and forth between those until you get them tight completely so that the pipe itself will no longer shift, twist, or turn. And again, you want to try to get them as tight as humanly possible. That way you're not having any exhaust leak. Once you have it all together, you're going to step out and you're going to start working on, if it came with exhaust tips, you don't have to worry about it. But if it didn't come with exhaust tips, the easy way to do it is get yourself a level, put the level on the exhaust tip itself, and then twist and rotate the tip until you get it where you want it. Tighten it down a little bit, twist and rotate, and then finally tighten it down. So again, I apologize for not actually showing you physically how to do this, but this is just a crude verbal walkthrough on how you're going to do your exhaust. So other than that, anticipate having to cut your exhaust off, because that's usually what the old exhaust, because that's usually what you have to do. But the new exhaust should slide on fairly easily once you get the adapters and everything aligned. Well, feel free to comment on the post, and I'll try to answer any questions that you have. Take care.